I'm a little bit of an addict, but not quite a junkie.
Dang, how did fall get over here? Like, look at this. This don't make no sense.
He says, I like my Jesus like this.
It was horrible. Dude is a machine.
What's up, Mosaic Podcast in Pencil? We are back.
We are back.
Good to see everyone. We hope that you guys are ready for some good content today. I did not start the timer, so we're going to start the timer now because we always get in trouble for going too long. So we're gonna set our timer for, what do you say, maybe 30 minutes?
Let's see what happens.
Let's do 30 minutes. Okay. So we gave you guys a little bit of a teaser last time that we were going to talk about something that this is like something that I wanted to say it's near and dear to our heart, but it's not for it's not for that reason. It's near and dear to our heart because it goes so like along with the theme of the things that we love at Mosaic, which is like finding the things that church and church culture in the world or whatever, especially church stuff, church people, you know, we try to find the things that they say like, oh, you have to do it this way, or this is the reason why, or whatever. And we just like want to do the opposite because we are just rebels, you know? I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but it's definitely not. It's like,
not.
It's all the staff except for Scott.
No,
He's
perfect.
He's different.
Yeah.
Scott's different. We really like Scott.
Yeah.
He puts us on the straight and narrow, and it's a
Yeah.
good thing. So anyway, so one of those topics, one of those things was cussing.
Yeah.
It's swearing, cussing, saying wordy dirds, you know, all those.
Cursing.
A curse. I feel like a curse is one of those things where it's like it's either coming from a witch or you're cursing like a pirate. And those are the only two that you have.
They don't. Yeah.
But the witch one is it's
like
a little
the
bit more
witch.
fun.
Like you're gonna do
but
some
it's
kinda-
you know, you got to watch out for them witches.
Gotta watch out for the witches.
So anyways, so how do we even get started? I don't even know. What is cussing? I don't know. I guess I just asked you. What is cussing for you? You know, what's okay, what's not okay, and where's the line? I don't know. How do you even begin? How do you even begin the topic of cussing? Because you know, we're a church for people who don't think church is for them, which means we have a lot of people who haven't grown up in church, or maybe they did and walked away from the church because it was so legalistic, or you know, so many rules, and you know, so people have this idea of saying bad words and doing bad things and whatever. And we just, you know, we want to break it apart. We want to get to the truth of it. So
Right. Yeah. So what is cussing? Well, and you said what is cussing to me, which is kind of funny. like I get to define it.
because you never cuss. And so
Totally never. Right.
You are the authority on cussing.
Totally. I do think it's funny though, because there is a little bit like, you know, some words are obviously cuss words. I would say everybody would call them that.
Yeah.
But then you do, as you get a little further down the line, there are some that are like, I don't know, is it? You know, I mean, hell, depending on how you're using it, is not. And then I joked, I think a while back in one of my sermons that growing up, my mom always said piss. So I've never thought, I thought piss was like a C level. You know, it's not, you know, it's like, it's serious.
It could be a body function, or it could be,
Right,
it could
so-
be, I'm angry.
So I know
You got me
some
kind of ticked off.
Some people would define it as a cuss word,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I never did because my mom always, like, I'm just like my mom defines it for me. You know what I'm saying? If mom says
She's
it,
an angel.
right? So then it must not be bad. So, yeah. So, but the problem that doesn't that even express the problem?
Yeah.
Why this is a
Yeah.
silly?
Why
It's like
it's
a silly
thing,
thing that Christians get obsessed with is because the Bible didn't define it. There wasn't a list. There's no list. If you go to the back of the Bible and you find like the maps, Paul's
That's where it would be, actually. That's
missionary
good. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
journeys, right? You look at there. Oh, there's this map of like
Yeah.
Jerusalem,
Names of God.
cuss words.
Cuss words.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
But there's not.
So if there were a list of cuss words that was just like, yo, it's in the Bible, don't say these words. Like, do you think we'd still be arguing about it, or do you think it would have so much power that it does, or is this more of a it has power because it's not explicit kind of a situation?
Yeah, well, that's the weird part, right? Well, one, the Bible's written in 3 languages, none of which are the ones we speak, right? So you got Hebrew and a little bit of Aramaic in the Old Testament, and then you got Greek in the New Testament. So even if there were a list, what?
What do you do?
Don't ever say that Greek word.
Yeah.
Okay, like that doesn't. But what that would imply is that the word itself, it's almost voodoo, right? That the word itself has some kind of something attached to it. But that doesn't make any sense.
No, and that's interesting you bring that up. Like, we were talking a little bit before this, kind of as we were prepping for this. And so my mom is from Colombia. So I have aunts, uncles, cousins, all that kind of stuff. They're in Colombia, South America. And when I went down and visited one of the last times, they use the F word like all the time. And these are like good people, go to church, you know, I mean, for the most part, you know, it's like everyone's got their little stuff, but it's like, but it was like the way that they were using it, it's like they were saying, what the heck?
Yeah.
It just like wasn't a big deal. And I was so shocked because I was, I don't know, maybe 15 or 16 at the time. I was in a church setting that was pretty, you know, rigorous as far as the do's and the don'ts and, you know, all those things. And so for me, it was just like a huge shock. I'm like, and I even said to one of my cousins, I'm like, you can't say that. I'm like, you can't say that. And so they said it like 5 more times in a row. And they were doing it to just be funny, but like, it was kind of a cool thing where it was like, for me, I saw that and I'm like, this is like not a big deal at all for them. Like, their conscience is not like in question at all.
Right.
It's like blue or green, oranges or apples. Like, it was just you pick a word and it didn't mean that much to them. So I just thought that was so interesting. Like I said, it's different culture, and that's a culture that's in our time right now. We're not talking about ancient cultures. This is a culture that's right here, right now, just a little bit in a different place.
So here's the thing. If you look at like if somebody said, okay, but what does the Bible say about cussing? So no, there is no index that says words. Usually 2 verses that people would go to. One's Ephesians, it's in Ephesians 4. It talks about not letting any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth. And one's in the Colossians, I think it's 3:8, that says, like, it gives like a list of things, and then like brash language or something is one of them. And you know, it's like in the list of things. So you would say, people usually say, like, actually, I jumped on a couple websites before we got on here, and I was like, you know, it's funny because if you type in like, is cussing a sin into Google, it's basically a question that like teenagers ask. It's not a question adults ask usually.
Where what can I get away with? What's not going to get me a look from the pastor or my parents?
The top 10 were all absolutely cussing is a sin. Look at what this verse says. This verse says that cussing is bad. And it's like, well, actually, no, it doesn't. It doesn't say that. It doesn't
say the word is.
Well, it doesn't say to use. It doesn't say not to use certain words. It says not to talk a certain way.
Yeah.
And that's different, right? And this is the thing for me. One is a strange comparison. So, like you said, a lot of what we like to talk about on here is kind of tearing down stuff that the church has built that isn't really biblical. Mm-hmm. That's like,
it's cultural,
right? So somehow there's a list of like 7 words that are super bad, but it's okay to gossip a lot.
Yeah. That's not as
like no, and officially we would say no, gossip's not okay either. But I will tell you, in the church lobby, you would get in more trouble for cussing than you would for gossip. 100 out of 100 times. And for me, if you look at those words, obscene, unwholesome talk or obscene talk or any kind of, for me, that falls more into the, are you tearing people down? How are you using, what are you using your words for? Not, did you say that 4-letter word? Like, for me, that's so arbitrary and so stupid that we emphasize that would be the thing that would get you the dirty look real quick and get you like, dude, don't talk like that here. But if you're over here whispering about somebody, you're totally cool.
It's like you can dress it up. You can spiritualize it. You can do all different things with different forms of, you know, gossip is just an example. Gossip, anger, pride. I mean, you can even spiritualize it. You can get away with it in church culture. But like, you say the word and it's on display. You're on, you know, it's like you can't get away from it. You can't get away from it.
Right.
You can't dress it up. You can't, whatever. It's there. It's in your face. And
But what's funny to me is the difference in damage between the two. Saying a cuss word versus gossiping or tearing somebody down. For me, there is no comparison. One is far, far more damaging than the other. And yet it's easier to draw the black and white line, because this word you can't say, than it is to say, whoa, 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 guys, we should stop.
Yeah.
This is crossing into gossip. We really need to quit this. Like that for me is the thing that's shocking, that we're so hard on these words, but we're not hard on the actual, really the heart of what those verses actually point towards.
Yeah, no, it's good. I had two things. So one, it kind of goes with that. I was reading a little bit in 1 John 2. In verse 28 it says, and now, dear children, continue in him, so that when he appears, we may be confident and unashamed before him at his coming. And then it says, if you know that he is righteous, you know that everyone who does what is right has been born of him. And that's just so interesting to me. It kind of goes exactly with what you're talking about. It's like it generalizes it rather than tries to specify the action or specify the, I don't know. It talks more about what is your motive, what is your intention, rather than did you do the thing or did you not do the thing. So let's keep digging into this a little bit more. You almost have to answer the question, you know, the F word, the B word, the C word, the D word. I don't know where does it get split into, as far as do we rank it still? Do we throw ranking out the window? And even along the same kind of lines, like, are there times where some words are appropriate and some words are not appropriate? Or maybe it's appropriate for some people and maybe it's not for some people, based off of motive or conscience, or I don't know what, because I feel like at the end of the day, there are some people who just, they want clarity. They want to know, like, what is okay versus what is not okay, and maybe even that is the wrong question, you know.
Okay, so I'm gonna.
What are we getting away with? Kind of a question.
I'm still gonna refuse to answer, but let me do this instead. So
throw yourself under the bus.
Instead of, I will eventually. Okay. Instead of looking at just there's a verse for this. Instead of doing that, what if instead you backed up and just looked at the way language is used in the Bible? Then instead of looking for a specific, like. Forgive the Bible, it's a podcast, I can be a little more heady here, a didactic teaching on it, something that says do this or don't do this. Instead of looking at that, just looking at the language that is used, there are several places in the Bible where language is intentionally used in like a sharp way in order to get attention, like an impact on purpose. Yes. So you could start in like the Old Testament specifically. So typically, one of the things that would make a word a cuss word is they're like taboo words, right? They have they're potty words, or they're sexual kind of words, right? Sure. So if you go to Song of Solomon, the entire thing is a sexual innuendo. Right. The entire thing. Matter of fact, the version you read, the English version, is completely watered down compared to what it actually says. There is talk of all the different kind of parts of bodies and all that, and it's all talked about in a beautiful kinds of
things you can do with them.
There it is in detail, but in like a, if you know what I mean, kind of a way. So it's used. That kind of language is used in the Bible. So to say that kind of language should never be used,
or that it doesn't exist,
that's foolish.
It's not true.
It's in there. Yeah. Then if you jump, I think it's in Isaiah. Ezekiel. Ezekiel's the best. So he, when talking about sin and some of the stuff the Israelites, I don't even want to say it here. Like that's how stupid this is. Like if I read the Bible,
it'd almost be a little bit too irreverent.
We'd have to like put graphic content because it's like, and it's in there.
Parental guidance.
He talks about a part of a donkey, like, and it's the part you're thinking of, like, and it's in graphic detail, and he's using it to grab your attention and say, this is really jacked up, Israel, stop doing that. Yeah. But he's using explicit, I would say, explicit language. Yeah. Then, if you jump to the New Testament, the best one is when Paul says, my righteousness is, he talks about it being like dung, right? Yeah. Like, compared to the grace of God, compared to what God's done. So, but the word dung, I can't pronounce the Greek word. I think it's like scubula or something. Yeah. It's probably not dung. It's probably
not poo-poo. Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he went all the way with that one, and it's really a harsh word. Now, if somebody wants to argue that, no, Paul would never cuss. But again, no, there is no black and white with Paul. Paul is like, I need this word to get you to see
this thing,
in
yeah.
comparison,
Yeah.
my righteousness to God's righteousness, it is nothing.
Yeah.
I count everything that I did before
Yeah.
knowing Jesus as,
Yeah.
and he wanted you to know
This is
that's
what it
how
meant, yeah.
little it means to me compared to what Jesus has done in my life. But the whole point was to get your attention,
Mm-hmm.
to say, hey, this is important. So the language that was used obviously I believe the Bible is inspired by God. So this is not like off the cuff. Paul's not like, oh, just write this word. Like this is intentional language on purpose. And I feel like there's places where emphasis is needed. And Paul goes like all the way to draw attention to this contrast he's trying to make. So again, like I'm kind of obsessed with words and stuff. Like I have probably 5 synonym websites. I'm not even kidding. I have 5 because some of them are
a little weird, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Because I'm always looking for like better or more accurate words to say things.
Really
so
describe what it is.
Yeah, and there are some, depending on which synonym website you go on, they have different options. Anyway, so I am obsessed with words. So when you are trying to emphasize something, sometimes a regular word might not cut it. But so this is where we get closer to answering your question for me, because if you were going to quote unquote cuss for emphasis, that would be a choice, an intentional, this word is going to be the thing I need to do. So, for example, a couple weeks ago, I was doing a funeral in a funeral home.
I feel like this is the beginning of the end for you. Keep going though. Now you have my attention.
I was wearing a suit and everything.
With the right shoes.
Yeah,
you weren't wearing like
I got
sandals.
the whole thing. I got the whole thing.
Okay, so this is like official.
It is.
Were there people crying, or like what kind of
Everybody. This is a real one.
Okay, so it was a real funeral. Okay,
yeah.
Keep going. Now I'm interested.
And in the funeral, I had this part. So in funerals, one of the things I always do is I try to give people permission to be angry, because I think Christians suck at that. Christians always try to be like, oh, they're in heaven. Like, don't worry about it. Like, this is actually a happy thing. And you're like, no, I'm hurting. This person just died. And Christians do this crappy thing of like, it's okay. No, this sucks. Yeah. So I really invite them into saying, hey, this sucks. You were never created to experience this. And to the point where I really invite them to hate death. You're supposed to. Your soul was not created to experience this. Death is our great enemy. Yeah. So I tell them, take all of that anger, all of that, and aim it at death. And I got to a point, I forget how I wrote it, but I got to the point where I felt like the only accurate way to like portray this to this group of people was I said, damn death, damn it. And I wanted to use another word worse than damn. Damn is appropriate because I actually do think that will biblically happen one day, that death will be damned. Yeah. But I was this close, and I choked on it a little bit. I knew most of the people in the room, but I didn't know everybody, so I was a little more careful. But walking out, this is the best part. Walking out to my car afterwards, the funeral director caught me, shook my hand, he goes, hey, it's the first time I've ever heard anybody cuss during a funeral, Pastor.
Reverend? Like, I am no reverend.
Reverend.
I just feel like it's part of a movie right
it's
there.
Like, you're welcome.
I am no reverend.
You're welcome for the first experience. Welcome to Mosaic.
So the fact that someone, I mean, not just someone, the funeral director ran out, caught you, and made it a point.
He was smiling, but he did make it a point.
Yeah.
And the dude does this for a living, which means that isn't normal. Yeah. I'm a little bit surprised by that. Especially so, again, like going back to the Bible, if you look at some of the way David talks when he's in distress, like he uses very descriptive. Like, okay, so David doesn't cuss, but he does talk about bashing babies against the rock.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's against people.
David's is out there, like using this kind of language in prayer that would be like inappropriate to say to a person.
Right.
So even like for me, a funeral is like the most appropriate place for any kind of language that wants to bubble up out of you for it to come out, because it is an emotional thing.
Yeah.
And this is another thing. So if I may flip again, I have said from what do we call it? The pulpit,
stage,
the stage, the pulpit, that for some people in the church, if they really wanted to pray authentically to God, that they should be cussing when they pray, because that would be the evidence that they were really being real with God. Otherwise, they are dressing it up. They are trying to like control themselves and like, I'm going to talk a certain way because I'm talking to God. Like God knows everything about you. If that word's in there, he already knew it was there. And like, especially if you're praying when you're hurting or you're praying when you're angry, that's where that stuff's supposed to go. Like God wants that.
I've heard you say from the stage before, like from the pulpit, I've heard you say that like, it's like getting venom out.
Yeah,
it's like
right.
getting the poison out of you.
Right.
And like the only being that is capable of handling that's
God.
Would be God.
Yeah. So I'm looking, I guess what I'm trying to do here is find some places where not only do I think it's okay, it's almost appropriate or demanded. Strong enough language. Like here I am sitting with a family who had an unexpected death. Is there anything else more appropriate than damn death?
Right.
I don't think there is. Like anything less than that dishonors the situation almost. I want to appropriately describe what's happening and be with them in that. So yeah, shoot, I'll just flip it. Not only is cussing allowed, I think it's demanded sometimes.
In certain situations, I mean, in some ways, like you said, especially that phrase, "damn death." It's like you're witnessing. You're like actually witnessing.
Yes.
You're sharing testimony, either about personal stuff or whatever. It's like, I don't even know. Is this? Hold on. This is gonna be the soundbite that gets us taken down.
Okay.
It's gonna be something like, God wants us to cuss. Something like that.
I think in some situations it is demanded.
That's crazy. Feel like,
because so the opposite would be somebody would say, so for example, the prayer thing. Somebody watching right now goes, "Wait, you're supposed to cuss when you pray." Adam, that is so irreverent. How dare you enter the heavenly courts and bespoil the air in heaven with those words. And I will say, I do believe like being respectful of God. I don't call him a homeboy. Like he's the king.
yeah.
But since he cast all your burdens on me, cast your cares on me, like he wants the raw, unfiltered me.
Yeah.
For me, those are the times when I'm closest to him, is when I'm real, the most real with him.
Yeah.
And that's why, again, for me, especially like for our church, so our church is, less churched people who are newer to the faith. And maybe they grew up in church hearing people like, when people pray in like the King James Version, they talk normal, but then when they pray, it's like thys and thous are dropped in there. Like that to me is like, God's up in heaven going, "What are you doing? Like, why are you doing this right now? This is so weird."
I was gonna cuss. What the heck are they doing?
Right.
That is just weird.
That to me is less. That's a less like good prayer
Yeah.
than somebody who's over here just pouring their guts out to God.
You're talking about you're alluding to two different things. You're talking about someone who's being real and authentic, and like I said, in a time of prayer or a time of like pouring out anger, whatever. But it's with God versus someone who's just has just an absolutely filthy language,
right?
And like they don't matter what, it doesn't matter what they say, it doesn't matter who they say it to. It's like, and for some people or for some situations, it's like it's so ingrained in their vocabulary. It's like it's almost no different than saying the word pizza. It's just
right.
It just comes out all the time. There's no filter, there's no thought, there's no intentionality. I think that's different.
So for me, like, actually, it's funny. I was just over at my parents' house. We were having kind of our weekly dinner on Sunday evening, and I know what it was. We were talking about different TV shows, and like I told them about this TV show, and then I said, you guys wouldn't like it. And my sister starts laughing because we do this all the time. We're like, well, we like it, but you guys wouldn't like it, because they really, 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 like if there's a lot of cuss words in a TV show, they turn it off. They do not want to hear that stuff. So it came up, and I told my mom. Then my mom found out we had a podcast. I'm like, Mom, hi, Mom.
It's really, really good, but it's not for you.
This might qualify. But it was the same kind of thing. So my dad was like, those shows though where they drop the F-bomb like every other word, it's just stupid. And I'm like, yeah. So for me, when I'm talking to somebody who is cussing like every other word, generally, and I'm not trying to be mean, generally I'm just like, do you not have a diverse enough language to find ways to communicate the thing that you're trying to communicate to me? So you just keep dropping the F word every other word because, and I'm like, and especially since I like words, if I can find a good word for something, I'll do it. So yeah, one thing would be, come on, can't you get a little more creative? Two would be just the habit thing. Right?
It's different. Then we're talking about something different then, you know?
It's just a habit. Yeah, it's just like a comma in a sentence. So this kind of brings me to another little piece for me. As a pastor, whenever somebody finds out, like if I meet somebody and they find out I'm a pastor, and say they cuss in front of me. Consistently.
Stiffen up, man.
They like apologize. Like my virgin ears have never heard such language before. And I'm like, oh,
just
please.
Happened to me like 2 weeks ago.
Ouch.
And then someone said, wait, aren't you a priest? And then I busted out laughing because I was like, I am not a priest.
Yes, please.
It is not.
Call
it is not
me
like
Reverend.
That. Please, it is the Reverend.
Bishop.
But it's just, again, it's so funny. It's like it immediately stiffens up.
But it does. So here's the thing. In those situations, like think about this. This is why cussing is so interesting to me, because for me, if it were just this black and white thing, it handcuffs you in some situations. So when I am talking to someone, sometimes for me to break the ice with that person, the best thing I could do is just cuss after they've cussed a couple of times to let them know that, like, I have to, like, do this thing with pastor here.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like you hear this exhale, like, oh, good. He's a normal person.
He's a normal person.
He's just a guy.
And now I can actually say what I want to say.
I can just be me now. I don't have to, like, be this robot trying to, like, dress it up for priest. So that's another. So it's weird. And I'm not, like, saying, here's what we'll really get canceled for. I'm not saying that in certain situations I felt like God called me to cuss, but being like on mission and really caring about every single person I interact with, I always try to put the person I'm talking to at ease. I try to make it so that it costs them little to have a conversation with me. So when I do that, and I am talking to someone who's maybe a little more rough around the edges, they got a job where everybody cusses all the time. It is just kind of a habit. And then they feel weird trying to, like, I don't want to say the wrong thing. If I can drop, a B-level cuss word just to ease their whatever, I feel like it's almost, I'm not going to say it is, but I'm going to say almost morally like an obligation for me. Because I care more about like that relationship and building that with them than I do some arbitrary rule about a word. And somebody's going to say, the Bible says you're not supposed to sin to reach people. I don't think it is.
So what now, fool? I hear you. Well, and think about it. How can you even get to the big stuff? How can you even get to anything that matters? Like, I don't know. Jesus died for you. You're a sinner. He wants to change your heart from the inside out. Those are like the biggest parts of our faith, the biggest parts of our Christian walk. And like, we can't even get to that stuff.
Right.
We can't even broach the topic because, you said a bad word.
Yeah.
Oh, you just
repent, sinner.
I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
You're going to have to find Mosaic Church, and you're going to have to go there with the rest of the sinners.
Right.
I don't know. That's just me, maybe. But, yeah, I hear you. Cool. Well, we're going to wrap up here.
Is it time already?
No, it is already. I know. I feel like we didn't. I feel like we need to. We just need to, like, park here for one more second. I think this is just so important. What is the cuss word that you won't say, or is everything on the table at certain points? And your mom is watching. You have to answer this. Listen, people want a real podcast. All right?
Okay, so here's the thing. This is the problem, because this is not a 1 minute answer.
It's not. You have to give the 5 seconds.
I really do. So this is the real truth. The actual answer to the question is cussing a sin? I think it actually kind of depends on who you're around. Like, it's contextual.
Yeah.
Again, so if I'm talking to somebody who I've never met and they're cut, and like, I'm going to ease the tension in the air by doing that. Like, there are certain situations where, oh my gosh, I'm going to use different language. Yeah. I actually joked, dude, I was just in a business meeting with a board in town, and the lady running the meeting, I actually kept track of how many times she cussed. And at the very end of the meeting, this was a really long meeting, I said, hey, I have 2 comments. 1, and I forget what it was, and then 2, you've cussed 8.5 times during this meeting. I pointed it out.
What is a half a cuss?
Half was hell. I said hell is only a half cuss word.
Because it's in the Bible.
Right. That's exactly what I said.
It is half sanctified.
But again, for me, it just depends on where you're at as to what kind of language you use. Now, I will try to avoid, obviously the F word's the one that kind of pings off of you a little bit.
Yeah. It's different. It just does. Yeah. Culturally, it's so heavy. It's such a jab. I would even say it's so overused.
Well, but I do, like, if you don't overuse it, it is like a bomb in a room when you do.
Well, and it can mean 10, 15 different kinds of things too. So it's just like, it's a landmine one.
However you want.
If you use it in the right context, it's like, who knows? Maybe it's the right word for the situation.
In general.
Answer that at least. You have to at least answer that. Is the F word ever appropriate in any situation for you?
Okay, so let me clarify one more thing. You mean when people are around, or like when I stub my toe under my breath?
Yes.
Then I'll say yes, but I'm going to let you wonder which one I'm saying yes to.
That's a pretty good answer. All right. Well, I hope that you guys have learned a lot. I think, obviously I think this comes down to motive. It comes down to intention. I think context is important. I think it's a dumb thing to do to try to take a word that has a lot of different contexts or whatever to other people, put it in a context that is not applicable, and then try to claim innocence. And then also the opposite of that.
Well, so for me, the purpose of this would be twofold. One, like, I guess I just kind of want to release people from a false sense of guilt for something that's kind of arbitrary.
It's just religion,
Yeah, but on the other side, like, I think we should be more intelligent, more thoughtful,
and
more
responsible with our words.
Like, so it's actually kind of both. Like, I don't care if you cuss that much.
Yeah.
But I do think you should be really careful with your words. Yeah. Really careful. Intentional.
And you can do both.
Yeah.
You can do both.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think
that's what makes a good preacher. I think that's what makes a good communicator, is like, when it hits, and you have everyone's attention. You know what I mean?
I thought you were going to ask me that. Will you ever cuss from the pulpit?
Well, that was my last question.
Well, the question here's how I'll answer.
Will you ever say the F word on stage?
No, I wouldn't, because there's no way that it wouldn't do damage in that kind of a room.
It's not redeemable.
No.
That's fair.
But a low level, I mean, shoot, I did it at a funeral.
You did it at a funeral.
How about this? First service, heck yeah. Because there's no cameras rolling on that one.
Good.
Oh, so should we just like?
It's just break the tension.
Yeah.
We have to just let everyone know. Listen, it's not okay, but we don't want you to like just go and tell everyone in the world this. But like we want to put it in context. In this podcast, in this ending of the podcast, we're gonna like steal the power away from the legalism spirit.
All right.
And we're just gonna say.
We're just gonna do it.
The F word on 3.
Right.
You ready?
Yes.
1, 2, 3.
I'm a little bit of an addict, but not quite a junkie.
Dang, how did fall get over here? Like, look at this. This don't make no sense.
He says, I like my Jesus like this.
It was horrible. Dude is a machine.